Welcome to First and 15, the only podcast that's trying to get you paid. I'm here with two-time FFPC champ AB. Alongside him is my guy, Dio the Machine. Guys, we are always trying to become much more efficient. And as Dio talks about all the time, we're always trying to find those edges. I want to talk about using Vegas as potentially an edge. Obviously, Vegas put out prop bets every year that people bet on, and they also put out their projections as well. Do you guys think that those things can be helpful in determining like how you should draft certain players? Have you looked at projections and prop bets in the past? And also, before I get that answer, I want to talk about what prop bets are for those people who play fantasy but may not gamble. In terms of, yes, I do see gambling and fantasy different because there's a legal difference. So let's talk about what prop bets are. So let's go through one. A prop bet is essentially a number that Vegas or a betting site comes up with, and you either have to exceed that number or not exceed that number. But let's talk about what goes into play when it comes up to prop bets. One, it takes into account sharks, much like y'all too. That's why I'll never draft with y'all again. That whole listener league thing, I am out. Just kidding, I'm out. I am out. I think I came in like of all 12. I think I came in like 12th place on the one team. I think I came in like 10th place on the. No, I'll never do that again. For the record, I'll never do that again. But it takes in what sharks think. It also takes in the public perception. But the thing that really makes this kind of controversial is that it also takes in what the money says. So as bettors start to bet on overs and unders, that can change what a prop bet is versus projections are projections. The sharks from Vegas, will project a certain number. How do you guys see prop bets and projections, and have you ever used that to determine like how to break a tie or to rank players when it comes to fantasy football?
Okay, be prepared because I'm gonna go down a lot of different tangents with this. Yes, like so. I think all of this, the reason for this topic for me is I think that this may potentially be an opportunity to gain an edge.
Okay.
Not on the surface, but I think So one, when you think about prop bets, like that is a like we can go back year after year after year after year and see what the prop bets were set at
Mm-hmm.
in March, April, May, June, July. So we can see it at the beginning of the offseason, pre-draft. We can see it post-draft. We can see it right at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
And so anytime, especially in the sort of kind of era of AI, you have you know finite or definite, like you have stats, you have numbers,
Yeah.
and you can go back and pull these numbers together. I think that is like a massive potential tool that can be used later. As far as, I won't necessarily say projections, but we're going to get into projections. But as far as sort of kind of, for me, ultimately determining, how accurate is prop bets, but more importantly, like where are they miscalculated? Where are they off? Obviously for Vegas, or these betting sites, to them it's just about making money. But for us, we are sort of kind of involved in setting these lines. If you play prop bets, obviously Vegas, will set it based off of, I'm assuming likely historical numbers. But then we sort of kind of, adjust that. And like you said, the money talks, money speaks, and money causes line movement. So I'm just very curious as far as like how accurate that is. And then when we compare that to fantasy projections, let's just say just as a full, like an aggregate of just taking all fantasy websites over the same time period, like 5, 10 years, what is more accurate? The prop bet line set, in May, or the prop bet line set in August or September, right before the game start, or fantasy projections, at those same point in times, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And even more, I think what may be helpful is where is the largest delta? Where is like the largest discrepancy? Where are we off the most? In what certain situations? And again, there is tons of data for both of these things because you can go back in time at various time points to pull these numbers. So this can get really specific if like you were able to pull together this data, and sort of kind of, put it in some type of, I don't know, have AI do it or what have you. But if you can figure out, okay, come, let's just say, post draft, prop bets tend to significantly underestimate rookie running back projections, or tend to be more inaccurate than fantasy football projections. Okay. Or what I kind of noticed when I was just sort of kind of going back and, just like looking at the, just very superficially looking at the data. This is all anecdotal. I'm not doing any, significant, or I'm not doing any studies. But what I saw when I was looking back at prop bets and comparing it to prior projections was that things that kind of caught my eye were like running backs who went to new teams.
Okay.
The prop line seemed to really underestimate their projections compared to the actual fantasy football projections. And when you sort of kind of account for and eliminate injuries and things like that, to me that seemed like, okay, maybe I need to, like, you can kind of look at prop bets, you can look at fantasy projections, or just look at prop bets alone, and you can kind of gauge, okay, this is a running back in a new position. If this is like a previously elite running back, what I've seen at least over the last few years is that number seems to be, an underestimate. Now, obviously, like injury takes, plays a role in this as well. So you can determine how you want to utilize this information. But I think you can get very specific. Elite veteran wide receivers who change teams, like what's more accurate? Fancy projections or prop bets? Wide receivers who are on the same team, what's more accurate? Where like situations don't change. What about when quarterbacks change? What about when head coach changes? What about when an offensive coordinator changes? And then you can take into account, again, like with use of AI, you can take into account, okay, what happens when you get a veteran quarterback that comes in, you have a new OC change, minimal movement on the O line. And then I just feel like there is a potential here. Obviously, I'm not doing any of this. I'm not a statistician and I don't have any background in this. But I think like even without getting into like the like actual weeds of it all, I don't know. I feel like there may be something there where whether or not you're using it, to bet props and sort of kind of, make money that way, or you're using it to, maybe find an edge in fantasy football. I think there's something there. I don't know what exactly it is, but I think, based off at least what I've seen the last few years, there's certain discrepancies. And I'm interested to know like what people in the fantasy community specifically are doing now these days when it comes to looking at prop bets and it comes to looking at fantasy projections. Which one they weigh more? Do they, do they even look at prop bets or do they even look at projections? Because I've started incorporating, Vegas lines in my fantasy football, sort of kind of decision making. It's more so just been based on like game totals, like, as opposed to like looking at a defense and thinking, oh, this is a really good defense. Let me avoid, players here. I care less about the actual defense and care more about, okay, these teams seem to have the highest point total of over, the course of a season. So like, let me attack that, and then like, obviously, you can kind of look at defenses individually and stuff like that. But for the most part, like that's kind of how I look at Vegas, but I'm not really, I haven't really gotten into the prop bets, but sorry, last thing, because I know I'm kind of going all over the place, but in season, I felt like prop bets were sometimes helpful as well because you have more information. And I think as Vegas gets more information and as the community gets more information, so it becomes a little bit more accurate. And I mean, we all kind of see it. Like sometimes, like they are just like highly accurate. Like to the yard line. So like that can like play a role in start sit decisions. So I just feel like there's just so much research there between fantasy projections, between props to see what is really accurate, what is not, what should we be using, in what situation specifically, because I think it's going to be very largely dependent, on like certain situations. Yeah, I don't know. Whoever's willing to do that, put that all.
Yeah, like week to week, I thought that it was kind of helpful. I started to look at game totals to figure out like what was Vegas projecting to be, I think, the highest scoring games. And then I'd kind of use that as sort of like a tiebreaker system if I had, like two players that I thought were kind of close. It was like, well, Vegas is kind of predicting that this game is going to be a higher scoring game. So let me increase the odds by playing a player that, or playing a player that I thought was close to another one. Like that was sort of like my tiebreaker system. Dio, do you ever consider Vegas odds or projections?
I mean, so honestly, not to throw water on everything y'all been saying, but I definitely don't really value any of this stuff. Honestly, this whole subject is not really much of a thing I appreciate much because I really view them the same way y'all view them.
Okay.
And just to explain, right? So, so people that have watched the show for years, even from the first episode we put together, I've always kind of stated I'm not a projections person. I hate projections. I don't look at them. I don't value them whatsoever. I don't care about them. I ignore it. Literally every single projections out there. I always ignore them. But when I define the two, right? Because the subject being prop bets versus projections, I don't really see them as a versus thing because I don't see them as being against or an alternative. I literally see them as two totally different things. And by that I mean prop bets, just like Vegas lines, right? And I'm not a professional gambler. I don't study this stuff, but I've watched several things. I've listened to certain things. I've tried to learn as much as I can. And the way I see Vegas lines, aka prop bets, is more so a number. And in this case, we're talking about football statistics. Like we're talking about running back, like rushing yards, or receiver receive yards, or quarterback pass yards. But a number that some form of entity, and typically, and that's another thing. I think y'all do see a lot of this in black and white. When I see this, very much a million shades of gray. By that I mean there's different Vegas prop bets that are out there. It's not one prop bet, right? Like one set of books will put their prop bet out, and another set of books will put their own prop bet out, and it's just a number that they come up with. Where for me, I view it as the number they come up with where they feel like they can get betting equal on both sides. By that I mean they put a number out there, say, again, arbitrary, say they think a guy's gonna get 1,000 yards. To them, they're then thinking they're gonna get people that bet over that 50%, and then people that bet under that 1,000 50%. And then if it starts to go where a lot of people are betting over, then they're like, okay, wait, we might be too low. Let's push it up to get it to where it gets to a point where, again, it becomes 50-50. So that's how I view Vegas lines / prop bets, just literally what they want the public to decide on, like the public to make the decision.
You're right on that, but that's exactly why I put sort of like how prop bets are determined, because if people are betting like significantly one way, that prop bet will change.
Right. So it's very
kind of fluky.
It's very like But again, I don't want to say ambiguous, but it's very fluid.
Yeah,
it's very fluid.
But that's still a definitive number that is set at some point.
Well, the reason why I don't say it's definitive at all, because again, there's different books. So you have,
but you can take an aggregate of those books. You can take an average.
You can, but okay, average is one thing. But in reality, it's all different numbers. You can say you can get an average,
but that's the whole point.
But it is. That's the whole point. But the reality of it is literally a bunch of different numbers. And then on the flip side, if we look at projection, and again, y'all know how I feel about projections. It's some entity, whether it's one person, like a Mike Clay, and no disrespect to Mike Clay, he does great work, he's known for a long time. But whether it's somebody like Mike Clay, which is one person, or a group of people that all come up with their projections, all they're doing is trying to guess. And, they have their statistics, historical data that they use to make these guesses. But at the end of the day, it is a guess. They're guessing the certain outcome these players are going to have over a season. Now, to dig even deeper into that, they make certain assumptions that I don't always agree with. Obviously, one of the assumptions is the player's going to stay healthy. Now, some projections are like they might miss a game or two, but in reality, nobody's projecting somebody's going to get hurt for the season. And on vice versa, nobody projects somebody's going to play all 17 games. It's like they're trying to hedge in all avenues, right? So that's why I don't really pay attention to projections. I can go a lot deeper into that, but again, I don't think it's a versus. I think you're looking at two different things. And again, like I said, it's shades of gray. There's a bunch of different projections. One entity could have a projection where somebody's going to get 1,000 yards because they believe in that player. Say somebody's a Justin Jefferson guy. They're like, man, that offense, great. I believe in that coach. I believe in McCarthy. He's going to be great for Justin Jefferson. And somebody else can be like, nah, they're going to be a running team this year. McCarthy hasn't done anything. The bottom might fall out. And then if that's the case, that person will have Jefferson projected a lot less.
That's the whole point of like me bringing AI into this. Is that you're not relying on one person.
AI
and that it's not.
AI is very controversial.
Of course, it's very controversial. So I'm not. Of course, it's controversial, but
again, what you're saying is aggregating, which means you're taking a bunch of different sources and try to make it into one.
But I don't know if I agree with doing that. But again, I'm not even talking. I haven't even gotten to the point of talking about where we can incorporate this for how this can be beneficial to us.
I mean, I haven't either. I haven't talked about that either.
All I'm speaking on is how accurate is it. So if we can determine how accurate it's been, because if I look back over the last 10 years and we take an aggregate of prop bet lines and we take an aggregate of fantasy football and we say that they were, and we can like kind of break it down. I'm not talking about overall fantasy points. I mean, you can look at a number of different metrics, but you can, because there's so much data out there, you can be very specific.
If you're asking,
but let me finish. You can be very specific with it. So it's not a question as to what can I do to use this or this versus that in terms of making this decision moving forward. It's more so last 5 years, who has been more accurate in terms of, let me finish. In the last 5 years, how accurate has prop bet lines been in terms of determining a veteran running back who's moved to a different team? And if they've been inaccurate, do they typically overestimate or do they typically underestimate? Same thing with a fantasy football projection. Again, not a versus, but take an aggregate. Because if you take an aggregate and then you move it forward, I will use that aggregate moving forward as far as determining what is,
But I never said at any point how I'm using these things. I never said how I use it.
I'm not talking about how you use it.
But what I'm saying is, but you just asked about how you use it. So if
I didn't ask about how you use it.
I'm saying, but you just brought up about how you use it. So
no, I did not.
You just said you use it by determining whether a running back goes to different. What I'm saying, I never spoke on that. But if I was to speak on that,
that's not what I'm saying.
Okay, what were you just saying?
I'm saying that we have tons of data.
Okay.
What we can do is we can retrospectively look at this data to determine how accurate it's been.
That's a way of using it. That's a way of using it.
It's not a way. I'm not using it.
You just said you would use that data to determine.
No. I did not say that. I said I would retrospectively look at that data to determine how accurate it's been.
That's using it.
I'm not using it. Using it would be me saying, okay, regardless how accurate it is. So then now moving forward, I'm going to use X, Y, and Z.
Regardless how you want to define it, you're still taking that data and incorporating that some way.
No, I'm not. That's action. That is not.
You just said you're doing something.
Let me be very specific.
Okay.
This is a retrospective review. This is not something. This is a retro.
Is that not action?
Oh my God! This is a retrospective review to determine how accurate something is.
Okay.
If I wanted to implement it, or if I wanted to use that data, or if I wanted to use that data,
all I said
is different.
But you retroactively analyzing it is doing something. You're using that information.
I'm not using that information. I'm looking at the information.
But that's using. That's what I mean.
No, that's not using the information.
You don't think it creeps?
That's not using the information.
I mean, come on. What are we doing?
That's not using. That's semantics. It's not semantics because before I implement something, I want to have an understanding of it. I don't want to just look back at it and say, "Oh, this is what it is." And I'm
investigating whether
it's just the same way I would investigate.
It is investigating action, is it not?
It's the same way somebody has an ACL injury, and based on historical data, we have an estimate of how long he will be out. And as we get more data and as surgeries change and as we get more specific with the type of surgeries, with the type of repairs, we get more data and we get better accurate with how long someone's going to be out. That's using retrospective data.
Can I finish my thoughts now? Because I still haven't finished my thoughts.
Yeah, it's not like I'm using it for fantasy football.
I didn't say you're using it for anything. I'm just saying you're using it. All I said was you're using it.
That's not
what you're using it for. That's up to you, but you're still using it.
I'm not using it.
So I do see
my terminology is different. I'm not using it.
Implement. I see exactly what Daniel said because at first I was
using it means I'm using the information.
Right.
Reviewing it means I'm reviewing it. If I read a book, I can read a help book and just read it and decide, you know what, this book is crap. I didn't say implement. I never said you read. If you read a health book. If you read a health book, and you determine that, you know what, this does not seem right, and then I go do more research, and I'm like, and I debunk everything that's in that health book. Am I using the information in that health book?
No, I got you now.
So I'm not implementing it, and I'm not using it. I reviewed it. I researched it. And then I critically appraised it, and then I went back and looked at more data, and I determined that.
Okay, research. You just said. Okay, I'll use the term research. You're researching. You just said that.
Researching.
So you're researching that information. Okay. Yeah. So for me, now back to what I've been trying to say this whole time.
Yeah.
Now, as far as whether I care about the accuracy, for me, again, I look at it a certain way. I look at it how the people, the public, determines where they want to put the money, and then also how, because most projections are determined by fantasy analysts. If you're talking about fantasy project, in this case, we're a fantasy show, so yes, they're mostly going to be fantasy analysts. So it's going to be people the way they view a certain outcome. So to me, it's both subjective, right? It's both the public just making a determination, and it's a fantasy analyst making a determination. So for me, when I look at whether it's accurate or not, I don't know. I really don't care. It's all guessing because it's not true objective information. It's somebody saying, I think this is going to happen. And in one instance, putting their money. In another instance, putting it on some kind of data sheet, said this is their projection. So again, to wrap all of this up, is me personally, I don't value prop bets or projections very much at all. What I do with it is I look at it and say, oh, wow, I didn't even think about this player maybe having a good season, right? Like if the public is, and I look at more prop bets than I do project because again, I gamble. But I'm like, dang, they think this guy's going to get 1,000 yards. And I'm like, man, I'm not even looking at this guy. Maybe I should look at it.
That's what AI as a predictive model. Yeah, you are bringing in human content. You are bringing in human.
Why you keep bringing up AI?
That's literally the whole point of this. That's literally the whole point of it. My whole point was that there is so much data that can be mined.
So you're an advocate of AI, which you basically tell us.
That's a whole different discussion, but obviously.
Okay, that's cool.
If used correctly, yes.
So one value that I do see, and you just brought it up, Daya, is that like sometimes I think we see, especially if you draft enough and if you watch enough drafts, you see these players in vastly different rounds. And you tend to add like value to where they're drafted. But then like when you see these projections, it's like, you know what? Maybe these players aren't that far.
Like it's almost like there might be. It's like talking here on the show. It's like I might have an outlook on certain players or teams, and I have this in my mind. But then when I talk to y'all, but no, I'm saying an outlook. Like I just think
that's a projection.
Okay, whatever you call it.
Even though you're not doing it in yards, that's a projection on how you're going to do it.
Can I finish my thought? Okay. I might have an outlook about how like, man, this team's gonna be good, this team's gonna suck, this player's gonna do well, this player's not gonna do well. But then I talk to y'all and y'all are like, no, I think this player's gonna do poorly. And I'm like, oh, and then we talk it out. Or even if we don't talk it out, just the fact that somebody thinks differently than me, that might make me be like, let me look at this a little bit closer. Let me now, maybe if I'm fading a player, maybe say, let me take a few shares now all of a sudden. Or if I was just totally just getting a player on my team and y'all are like, this player is going to be trash, and maybe you're like, let me look closer. Maybe I should back up or not take as much or even take later than where I've been taking because the public's not. So that's the way I look at prop bet. So it's almost like a glance, like, am I totally off on one player? And if I'm not, if it's just, one receiver's going to get 900 yards, another receiver's going to get 800 yards, and I'm not looking at it like, maybe I should change my rankings all of a sudden. So again, that's how I really look at prop bet. But again, I don't give it much value or much thought. It's a cool thing. And then when it comes to Vegas and gambling, it's like, just like with what's that website? What's that website? Sorry?
Betting Pros?
No. What's the website where people gamble on right now on their phone?
Oh, there's tons. Like
what's the DK, Underdog,
MGM.
No.
We're giving ads at this point.
Prop bets? No. Prospects. Thank you. Prospect. You know how easy Prospect is. Like you just click over under.
Because we're not getting paid.
I know. We just threw out a bunch of that. They all getting paid all of a sudden. You get on your phone, you press over under. It's that simple. So that's really why I look at lines just for the gambling portion of it.
Yeah, but again, I think it's really important to put things into perspective because we're drafting a guy like Jahmyr Gibbs in the first round. And I think it's sobering to see, for instance, in this graphic that I have up now, we have Jahmyr Gibbs projection at 1162
rushing,
but then we also have Kyron Williams at 1218.
But also Gibbs got passing game as well.
So does Kyron Williams, right? Like Kyron Williams is a pass catching.
Not like Gibbs, though. Not like Gibbs.
But still,
I would wonder what Gibbs in this instance. I would wonder what they would think Gibbs' receiving yards would be.
Right. But the fact that like we see Gibbs as this different tier of running back, I think that's where the projections and prop bets really come into focus and actually can help. Also, if it helps anything, I changed the graphic from prop bets versus projections to prop bets and projections.
You did that just now?
I did it just now. I did it just now.
Yeah, because I mean, really, like, to me, like, us thinking about this, having a gut feeling, talking about it, reading, different articles, looking at things objectively as far as transaction, head coaching changes, all of this ultimately ends in our minds projecting a certain outcome. And a projection itself
He's
is
trying
just
to get me to get on board.
no. I'm not saying we're going to.
We're doing projections.
Not that. No. But like somebody doing a projection is just like pen to paper number.
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not going to write my thoughts in. It's pen to paper number. But when it comes to like, yes, seeing it as a list, that's almost like seeing rankings to some degree.
Yeah.
So I don't care so much about that. I think it's, I think it can sometimes, okay, maybe it just adds like a little bit. I'm on the clock. I can take like 10 different people between, there's 10 guys in my queue and I have like the 9th pick in the, I'm at the 109, right? And so maybe like, okay, let me see what Vegas has it at. What's like the betting market what did they set it at? What's, what's the line movement? Okay, what is like the entire fantasy community as a whole? If I, what the entire fantasy community as a whole, what do they have their projections at? The reason I can't do that now is because I don't know how accurate they are. I don't know how good they are. I don't know what any of this means.
So you're in the investigation stage, essentially.
But I can't really be in an investigation stage because I'm not going to go back 10, 5 years or whatever somebody would consider.
Well, the game changes so often.
It changes, but still, it changes, but human beings don't. So, like, I love the fact that you brought up that, like, it's the bettors that set the market. People change. Vegas is trying to create a 50-50. That is all the human element. That does not change. That does not change. So where are we as humans? Because that's all AI is doing. AI is trying to predict where our minds are going to be, what we think. I'm not trying. I don't care. I don't care that that some player is set at 1,100 yards. What I care about is the delta. Are we overestimating? Or are we underestimating? And I want to see what that difference is and where that greatest discrepancy is. That's what I care about.
I mean, in both aspects, there's the simple human nature of using most likely recency bias data, like things that they recently saw last year, and using that to make a decision about what they think is going to happen this year.
That's probably the largest impact
in both things.
Yeah,
what's the largest impact? The public and the projector maker. So. And we know the game of football is evolving so fast. We're trying to catch up to it. We're always trying to. We're always behind.
So where are we lagging? Where are we lagging?
I think.
And can we use all this data to figure out where we're lagging?
I don't think. I mean, this is a personal opinion, but I don't think there's nothing. I mean, we can get better, of course, but I don't think we're ever going to get to a point in anything in life where we can truly predict the future. And in my opinion, this is what we're trying to do.
There you go. This is literally the crux of the situation. Do you believe that AI will ever like reach some form of level of being able, not necessarily to predict exact outcomes, but have a predictive model as far as like, predicting like just certain outcomes?
You're essentially looking for a minority report.
Not necessarily.
Number one, I mean, that's predicting.
Because I mean, you get to the point right now where I can draw blood, we can look at your genome, and we can predict, if, when, severity as far as certain diseases.
But that's predicting human behavior, though, not necessarily
human behavior. There's genetics. There's it's multifactorial. There's genetics. There's like the outside.
I'm not an advocate of AI at all. Like I don't even talk about it. So I can't add much to this conversation.
It's not even about being an advocate.
I have nothing to say because
it's not even about being an advocate of it. It's just about unfortunately, not unfortunately, but like that's where the world is going. Like. So it's interesting, though. But like, again, like this, you don't need like some like you don't need like. I mean, I guess you could use AI, but like, someone please take this data, and just tell me, let me know how accurate is prop bets. Where are they inaccurate? And same thing with fantasy projections.
But the problem is, I'm sorry, we're belaboring.
We're 30 minutes in,
but I don't care. It's interesting. The problem is, it's consistently something you have to constantly predict, right? Like even if we get good to figuring out what's going to happen in 2025, from our historical data, that doesn't mean we're going to be as good when we're trying to predict 2026.
It's better.
It doesn't.
That's literally the
No, it doesn't mean it's not automatic.
It will learn.
It's not, because every year things change.
And it's picking up on those changes.
But that doesn't mean it's going to be more accurate, because, again, the change could be more bad. There could be a year where it's similar to last year, and there could be a year where it's totally different.
And it will
every year it varies.
It will take into account that information.
It won't. It can't.
Okay. We got to
move on.
Okay. Listen, we talked about backfields, these ambiguous backfields.
Football going to be obsolete in 5 years.
I'm not going to allow it. I'm going to be on the front line fighting against AI.
We talked about ambiguous backfields in the past episodes. Obviously, there are a handful of backfields that come to mind. We always want to update sort of not only viewers and listeners, but have you guys updated, and do you guys feel more comfortable about certain ambiguous backfields? I want to go through a handful of them, specifically like the Steelers. Like, how do you guys feel about that backfield now? Do we have any answers? Do we feel any better about the Steelers and, in that backfield? Like, how do you guys feel about some of these ambiguous backfields?
Yeah, I will say this, like, my opinions have changed. My drafting has changed with pretty much almost all of these backfields.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, really, like, all of them. But my confidence level in terms of me being right probably has not changed much at all. So you could definitely argue, like, should I be changing? But it's
even more interesting.
So I'm starting to like get the gut feeling, and when I can't like articulate or determine what is causing that gut feeling, that's why the confidence level has not changed. But we're all constantly like reading, not just stuff on Twitter or listening to podcasts or like reading through The Athletic or listening to Team. I mean, like, clearly we're addicts. Like, you just get flooded with so much information. But it's just like, as this information starts to come together, starts to gel, you start to kind of formulate more of an opinion. So yeah, for me, it definitely has changed. You said like the Pittsburgh Steelers backfield. I've definitely, like, again, my confidence level has not changed. For me, I still think at the end of the year, like, Caleb Johnson is going to lead that backfield in fantasy points. The problem is I don't know how significant that's going to be. I don't know if that's going to be. It's hard for me to kind of right now envision him as this like just sort of kind of workhorse back where he's getting both the passing game, third down, and goal line. Right now, I see it that he's like kind of early down back in between the tackles. He's finishing games, but I don't see him as a third down back. I don't see him as a hurry up back. I do see him as a goal line back. So to me, he's just basically Najee Harris, right? He's just Najee Harris to me. And so, like, I don't know how excited I get about drafting Najee Harris, especially with the way drafts are in 2025. There's just a lot of just potential landmines, and there's a lot of potential just like guys who could like really win you your league where Caleb Johnson is going. And then so you could take the argument of, okay, well, let me just get the cheapest guy. And here, I think is where it's just depending on like the type of drafter you are.
Cordell Patterson?
No. So like, I'm not the type of person who's going to take Jaylen Warren because, at least in my mind, and I understand I could be wrong with this. I don't have like a super high confidence level, but I would say it's about 80% that I don't think Jaylen Warren is going to walk in and be like the lead back and be someone who is going to dominate the touches. I do think he's going to get a lot of passing downs back. I do think his role is going to be valuable. I think he's going to have valuable weeks, but I just don't see him as this explosive guy. So for me, and this is something I probably need to get a little bit better with, is like, I don't like drafting guys who I can't see just like dominating. And I know that most of the guys that I get are not going to just dominate, like not going to be like, my threshold is like 17, 18 points per game. Like, most guys you draft aren't going to do that, but that's my goal, right? And so I don't see Jaylen Warren in that role. So I'd rather just wait and take somebody else who's in a more ambiguous situation, and see if they potentially may end up in that role. But I do think he's going to have value. Like, players get hurt. You have bye weeks. So for me, I'm trying to squeeze in some Jaylen Warren, where before I was just like completely away. And I'm just like not really drafting Caleb Johnson anymore at all.
Dario, I think you feel differently about this.
Totally different, right? But no, about everything he just said.
All right,
I haven't changed anything. Not one thing. The way I thought from the very beginning, to when I say beginning, I would say post-draft. because that's when I really got in my fantasy mind, right? You know, rookie draft started. But the way I felt about every single one of these backfields since post-draft to right now has not changed at all. Why? Because I don't think nothing objectively has changed. I think it's been enough. Everything that's changed has just been nothing but fluff pieces. What people have thought, people's opinions.
Well, I wouldn't agree with that. I mean, they signed Aaron Rodgers.
Okay, all right. Well, with the signing of Aaron Rodgers, that was something everybody thought was going to be the case regardless. Like, I think Aaron Rodgers signing with the Steelers has been baked in for the logs. I think him not signing would have been the biggest surprise. You know, would have thrown values off more, you know. But it all played. Trade. Sorry?
And Pickens trade.
Yeah, but the Pickens trade was before the draft.
Yeah. Was it before the draft?
Yeah.
No, it was after the draft. Pickens trade was after the draft.
It was before the draft.
Was it before the draft?
Yeah.
So
we were able to factor that in while we were drafting.
Right.
So, I mean, like...
Before the NFL draft?
Yeah.
Yeah, but either way, like, since everybody's been drafting for the most part, not counting you, but if people are starting to draft now,
if it was,
they were able to factor in.
Maybe Pickens.
I mean, if it wasn't, it was pretty close, right? Ever since my fantasy mind, I've known Pickens was going to be.
Right.
All right, so again, I'm saying that to say everything else we've learned from now has been nothing but fluff. I think position-wise, I mean, yeah, you have the Dobbins signing, the Chubb sign, so that's objectively made some changes, some big changes. So obviously I had to think differently about them. But even then, once they sign it, I really kind of wrap my mind about where I think things are going to play out. It's locked in. I don't think we've heard up to this point that there's certain guys that we expected to be first teamers in OTAs or minicamp were not first teamers. You know, again, a lot of people speculating these rookies might come in and take the job, but in most cases, historically, rookies don't day one unless they're high draft picks like your Genties, you know.
Yeah.
Maybe even your high second rounders. But in most cases, rookies kind of have to work their way up, at least at this point in the offseason.
Yeah.
So again, when you're talking about the Steelers, I mean, I've been on Warren since day one. Y'all have known that. I've been beating the drum of Warren in our group chat forever. Nothing I've heard or nothing I've seen has changed. I think
outside of the draft capital of Caleb.
Again, but I'm saying these are my thoughts post-draft.
Yeah.
So I've always had Caleb Johnson considered in the situation.
So you think Jaylen Warren outperforms Caleb Johnson? Because when you say
overall or into the season,
I guess
I think Jaylen Warren is the better bet. And yeah, actually I do.
So this is kind of because this is like an important discussion because I know like whenever I like listen to podcasts, this is like what irks me. And it's not that they're doing something on purpose, but it's just like I want to know exactly what you mean when you say I love this player.
Well, I'm not trying to be out here and say I love it.
Exactly.
I'm not even trying to have that discussion. All I'm saying is the way I view all these backfields, nothing has changed between.
But that's what I'm getting to. It's like, so when you say like do you mean just Jaylen Warren's just better because of his ADP value? Or do you mean like you feel like Jaylen Warren is gonna provide not even better talent, but just gonna produce more fantasy points? Do you feel like he's gonna finish? You know, is he gonna be someone you can like start on a week-to-week basis, or you feel like it's just gonna be tough to gauge?
Okay, so let me ask you this: if I tell you I think Jaylen Warren is gonna be the start of the season, play 10 games as a starter, or even 11 games as a starter, but then eventually they go into the bye week, and then they eventually decide to give Caleb Johnson more work, maybe split half, and then maybe by the end of the season, especially if they're not in the playoff run, make Caleb Johnson the main guy. Then what am I telling you?
That is very detailed. I love that.
I mean, but you tell me a lot. You tell me a lot. But what I'm saying, to give it to you in one sentence, how do I say that, right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. And I'm not telling you to do that. What I'm saying is like sometimes I find it hard when you say I'm a Jaylen Warren guy. Like I know you're drafting Jaylen Warren, so I care more about why you're drafting Jaylen Warren, but specifically what you're looking. But like that to me, like if he is getting like a majority of the snaps for 10 weeks and he's going like that's value. I don't care how he's feeling.
Bingo.
So that's very different than somebody saying I want to because if you like roster construction wise, if you have guys that you have plenty of running back starters, but you need somebody that is going to come on at the end of the year.
Yeah.
Then
all of that's all of okay. So look, and you talk about I learned this from you. We got to look at these things in quarters, right? Because even if I think what I just said, and I think by this, Caleb's gonna go crazy. I don't know how the rest of the league's gonna play out, right? I don't know if I'm able to find a waiver wire gem for the second quarter, the third quarter that is gonna replace Warren anyway. Caleb, I'm gonna be able to put him in my starting lineup, right? I don't know. So right now I'm looking at what's gonna happen in the very beginning.
Yeah.
And in my mind, one is going to come out the gates. You know, it's the same exact way, if y'all recall last year, that I was so high on Chuba.
Yeah.
I kept telling him, I'm taking Chuba. I don't care. I'm taking Chuba. And I had him almost everywhere, you know. And I kept telling him, I was like, what if Brooks doesn't come back right? Because by then, everybody was already thinking in Brooks is going to come back after 4 weeks or whatever, be the man, take that job. So I say that all that to say, and we go all the way back. I haven't thought any different about anything. I'm waiting till we have some kind of, again, objective data. And for me, objective data would be a certain guy getting way more rest with the ones, right? Or what I always like to put in the group chat. Such and such is leading the position groups in the practice reps. Like, you know, I look at that stuff, you know, because that's like something that is not opinionated. It is what it is, you know, so.
But I still have some other graphics that I need to put up and some other teams I want to talk about.
Are you going to say that? Again, I think Warren is my pick right now.
All right.
I'm not saying he's going to go full season, but that's who I'm drafting.
All right. Let's talk about the Jags a bit. The Jags is another ambiguous backfield. How do you guys feel about the Jags?
So some of this was just like for me due to like the pre-draft priors. This is why it takes me again. Like I always go back to the fact that I'm just human.
You were real big on 2, right?
Yeah, I was real big on 2. Yeah, like so like this is so like it. You know, it's for me. It's just hard to like eliminate my priors because it's a fine line between don't eliminate your priors because your priors may be right. Like if you feel like a guy has talent, then that's people talk about the cream rising to the crop,
right,
or to the top. But you could also be wrong in evaluating your talent, or the coaches may not see it that way. So, drafting these rookies early on, pretty much almost all of them really, was very easy because almost all of them has just seen their ADPs rise, right? So part of me kind of like, not drafting as much too has just been like, well, mindset-wise, I got quite a bit of him, like double-digit rounds and things like that. So why spend extra cost? But then we had the discussion about ETN. You kept seeing like ETN just going lower and lower and lower. And ETN seemed to also have multiple outs. And so I think just as time kind of went on, I became very comfortable with the idea that, one, ETN could lead that backfield in the same situation as a Jalen Warren starting off the year. And, I floated this out, kind of side note in the group chat, like, I don't like to ignore week one because week one, like, is just like, it's Christmas morning. You open up presents. You have no idea what's going to happen. You think you know what's in that box.
Yeah.
It looks like a bike. Mess around, it's a keyboard.
Yeah.
I don't even say you think you know what's going to happen. I just think you get that excited. Like, I get to open my present. Like, guess what? I can see what I have. Guess what? Yeah, I don't want to open my present in my starting lineup, though. Or I don't want to open up, like, I don't want to, like, have on my bench somebody who scores 20.
It might happen.
It might happen. So I want to try to minimize that. I'm not quite sure. So like, to me, like the best way to kind of mitigate that or to like maximize that is like to try to find myself in certain positions. And certain guys play like the Jaguars, I believe, play the Carolina Panthers week one. And yeah, Carolina Panthers, they made, I think they drafted 2 DN, like kind of in the first 3 to 5 rounds.
What's to beef up that defensive line?
They
got some pieces.
Yeah, and then, but those guys, I mean,
they're still going to
struggle. So, but again, it's like, it's not an elite. So, like, whoever ends up being that Jaguar starting running back, like, at least out the gate, like, at least he's getting the starting touches. He's getting some touches. I kind of know that I feel more comfortable, especially if it's a 0 RB team. I feel more comfortable. So, there's some value in that because then I can figure out things along the way, and I don't have those, and I'm not missing out on the FFPC championship or the tournament by like 2 points because, I started 2. So get back to your point though, like basically what I'm doing now is like, I want to leave my draft with one of those Jaguar running backs because I want to target the most ambiguous situations because those guys are the cheapest, and there's a lot of ways that 1 or 2 of those guys can be highly valuable and easily outproduce their ADP.
All right, so let's move on to the Broncos.
I can't speak on the Jags.
Don't speak on the Jags.
I mean, I thought nothing had changed.
I ain't saying one thing. No, come on now. That was way more issue to me than the last thing we talked about, the Steelers. So again, nothing's changed for me. Y'all know I've been on ETN the whole time, right?
Yeah.
And so a few things, right? So I understand ETN had a bad season, but also remember several seasons, not 1 and 2, but maybe 3 seasons of ETN being very good in the league, like a solid running back. Now he had at least 2 good seasons. Like
he's been hurt like most of his time.
No, he had like 2 top 12 running back seasons, like 2. There was a time we would draft ETN in the first round, first 2 rounds. So again, I know he has talent, and again, he's a first round pick. Again, maybe two old regimes back. But again, I know also with this being a new regime, nothing's set in stone, nothing's definitive for him. But then I'm like, okay, who is his competition? Yeah, you got Tank Bigsby, who did better last year, but again, it might be due to injury. Tank Bigsby, other than, he was okay, but his pass game is not to be trusted and things like that. Then you got Tua, who's a fourth round pick. Everybody loved Tua even prior to the draft because of the combine. He ran the fastest 40 and all that jazz. And then on top of that, going to the Jaguars, Liam Coleman, everybody knows what he did with Bucky. And then everybody keeps bringing up the fact that the GM was actually talking about taking Tua during his interview.
Yeah.
And how, obviously he's been like him for a long, long time. Yeah. So, he has all these, check marks on him that makes him look good. But for me, when I first looking at the draft, it was just simply the discrepancy in pick. Tua was going way up here.
Yeah.
ETN was going way down here. And I was like, the incumbent has not lost a job yet. Like, nothing has been done or said to say ETN is not going to be the starter nor going to be here. And I remember a few weeks back, maybe a month back, there was like a quote or interview that Liam Cohen did where he literally says he doesn't know where anybody heard about this thing. We're getting rid of ETN or anything. We love ETN. He's been doing everything we've asked him. And then all of a sudden you start seeing ETN's ADP start going up. Yeah. Like people start drafting ETN and looking, and I'm like, what changed? Like nothing actually changed. Yeah, the coach said something, but objectively speaking, nothing they did change. So and then on top of all that, everybody again brings up the GM talking about Tune. That makes me wonder, did Cohen really want Tune, or was Tune really just I think Gladstone is his name? Was Tune a Gladstone guy the whole time? I mean, I don't know. And, I'm totally speculating here, but it makes me wonder because everybody's really looking at it like, that's Cohen's guy. That's the guy Cohen is drafting. But maybe it was Gladstone that really wanted him on the team. But,
Yeah, it's tough to say. But, devil's advocate, apparently Cohen had very similar, statements about Rashad White last year.
No, I'm not saying. No, I'm not saying what he said has value. What I'm saying is once he said that, people started bringing ATM on ADP.
Yeah, but I also think it too is like he didn't get traded, like because that was like basically squashed the like, and he could still get traded. Who knows?
And that's another thing. If he was to get traded, I think he'll probably go into a better situation or a good situation. So it's like you're still gonna win regardless.
Yeah. Like but that's really kind of where it came down to because pre-draft Tootin was going well after ETN, so it was easy Tootin. Mm-hmm. Then like you said, then Tootin started.
You were drafting before the draft?
Yeah.
Damn, bro.
I had Tim, RJ Harvey. Degenerate. It's funny because I got one best ball team that I think has RJ Harvey, 2.
So you're just going in
on rookies. And then it has Kenneth Walker and Christian McCaffrey. It's like a sick team. I mean, none of those rookies may do anything, but if they hit,
Oh, and also one more thing, Tank Bigsby. The reason why I'm not on Tank Bigsby this year, and I was on him last year. But really, the simple reason I'm not on Tank Bigsby because I think there's a high chance he's running back 3.
It's not a case.
And I'm not even that.
Yeah,
I'm not drafting running back 3s.
Yeah.
Unless they're rookies and I feel like they're just running back 3 because that's they got a right to passage. Yeah. I'm not drafting somebody that's a vet that's a running back 3. I'm not gonna do that stuff.
Yeah, to me it's the passing game involvement. He's been terrible in the passing game. There was that one year where he was accounted for 3 interceptions.
Interestingly enough, I heard something recently where they said he was actually a good pass catcher in college. I mean, I didn't look it up.
Yeah, I was a Bigsby fan coming into the league.
He was?
I was a Bigsby fan.
I'm saying, was he a good pass catcher in college?
He was okay. I mean, he was okay. When they say, I don't know, when they say good pass catchers, that can mean a lot of different things.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to the Broncos. Obviously, their situation has changed. Mm-hmm. They signed J.K. Dobbins. Yeah. Obviously, R.J. Harvey was going really high in drafts. J.K. Dobbins, that's a change for you. That's a tangible change.
Right.
Running back room, different. How do you guys feel about that running back room?
But remember, we talked about it 2 weeks ago. Mm-hmm. So the way I felt about it then, I still feel about it. So, again, nothing's really... And again, I was saying then, I think Dobbins is a major concern to Harvey. Mm-hmm. I think they sought him out. He's a veteran. He had a good season last year. He's still young. Yeah. He's 2 years coming off injury now. Mm-hmm. He signed a prove-it deal. Yeah. and he's a trusted vet, like compared to the rookie. So I think that hurts R.J. Harvey. Now, to what extent, I don't know. But R.J. Harvey was going like in the 4th, 5th, 6th round.
That was it was too high for me.
I definitely wouldn't be drafting him there now. And Dobbins, I'm pretty sure he's gone up in ADP. If I was to make a bet on either of them, like in a vacuum, I'd probably go Harvey just because the fact he probably has a higher ceiling.
Yeah.
But this is not in a vacuum. We're drafting, right? And right now, with Harvey being where he's at and Dobbins being where he's at, I'm gonna take Dobbins.
If you're not in the vacuum, what do you in?
A blender?
No. All right. I want to move on. Like I know.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Let's also talk about the Giants as well. That's another ambiguous backfield.
That's a good one to talk about.
Not much has changed when it comes to personnel. Like no more additions. However,
go ahead.
However, that's still a backfield that is still ambiguous. People like Scatterboo. Tracy is still there. Wasn't a bad back last year. How do you guys see that situation? Has that changed for you?
Man, that's a tough situation because I don't know who's playing what role. I don't know, obviously I don't have a huge confidence in who's going to start the season. I could see this being sort of kind of a hot hand approach. I could see, Tracy sort of kind of being the guy to start. And this is one of those situations. I am not someone who's like, oh, let's just take the guy at the lower ADP. I really don't like that. I feel like that's a cop out, and I feel like that's not always the case. You can put yourself in a lot of bad situations. But in this situation, I think I'm just going to draft Tracy. Like, I'm just going to draft Tracy right now. And, because again, same thing. Like, you were getting Scatterboo pretty late, and then his ADP started to like sort of kind of increase, I think, to like the 8th round. And then you saw Tracy really dip. Like, ADPs are fluid, but like ADPs, like, for every action, there's a reaction. Somebody comes up, somebody definitely is coming down, and especially like when they're on the same team and they're playing the same position. So in these ambiguous situations, like I wouldn't say like necessarily fade him completely because you never know, injuries or Scatterboo just maybe just win the job out. But there are a lot of things in Tracy's favor over Scatterboo. They kind of have different athletic profiles, but you're gonna be hard pressed to really prove that Scatterboo is somehow a more athletic back or a better running back than Tracy.
Yeah.
Maybe in certain metrics, but maybe not in certain metrics, right? Who's better in the passing game? Well, obviously Scatterboo had his sort of kind of receiving and production in college, but Tracy was a wide receiver, right? And then apparently Cam is like one of the worst pass protecting running backs to come out this year. So there's like a lot there where I feel like it's very ambiguous. One big thing though, I think that I kind of read, I want to say it was an Athletic, was like, I think Scatterboo has like kind of been out. I think he's been hurt or he's like not been at OTAs very frequently. So we can, one, obviously it's not a good thing. May not be a bad thing, but it's not a good thing. But two, like, how much stock do you now put in Tracy's getting runs with the ones?
Yeah.
Well, if the other guy's not there because he's hurt, like, again, it may not be a good thing that he's not there, but how do we know that the coach is not going to just like now start splitting ones as soon as he's healthy in training camp? So it kind of makes it tough. Both are going pretty late. I think for me, the one thing that's changed right now is I want to take advantage of Tracy's ADP in the instance that he continues to get runs with the ones and we start to see his ADP start to level out and increase. So I want to take advantage of the discount right now.
All right. I think we are overlooking Devin Singletary, who got banged up a little bit.
Who?
Devin Singletary, who's still on that backfield.
And Turbo Miller.
I'm not familiar with his game. I'm not familiar with his game. But Diana, how do you feel about this Giants backfield?
So initially, I really didn't have any feel about it at all. I like Scatterboo just because he's a new shining toy. Higher draft pick, was actually a running back in college, a successful running back, especially how he played in the playoffs. Showed well. I didn't really have too many warts in his profile, other than maybe not good long speed. I haven't heard about him struggling in pass protection, but I have heard he's pretty okay as far as a receiving back. So I feel like he had all the attributes needed. I look at Tracy. He was a wide receiver in college. I think he played running back before, but he did play wide receiver in college. Late round pick. One of those guys where he got the job because the people in front of him were just not that great. Didn't start the season, but I think maybe Singletary got hurt, which really got his reps.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things. The injury kind of allowed him to get the reps needed. But he did okay. I know they were frustrated with him with some of his issues like fumbling. Maybe not that greatest between the tackles, but he was dynamic. Yeah. He had long plays, and he held his own for somebody that was a rookie, a wide receiver playing on a team that was struggling. Like he did pretty okay. But again, I didn't really have a feel. And when I looked at Jazz, it looked like I think they were going around the same place. Like it seemed like the market also didn't really know who they wanted.
Right.
Now, since then, and kind of what Abby was saying, he has been injured. I want to say it's injury, but it might have even been contract related, but I think it was more so injury. And I think it was probably minor because it didn't seem like something concerning him.
Yeah.
But with him being hurt, every time I would watch reps in practice, it was always Tracy or Singletary in the backfield, every single time. So now consciously I'm looking at it as, okay, those reps might be valuable that he's losing. And if Tracy continues to do it, like I saw one play where he caught a pass from Russell Wilson, he looked pretty good. Like I think the team even put it as a highlight on their social media. So if he keeps doing stuff like that, I think as the incumbent, he's going to get the job. And again, we're talking about that second quarter of the season. That's the guy I'm really looking or wanting. But again, if I was to be in a draft, I really would take either or. I think I'd probably lean Tracy because of him being dynamic, as well as the other things I mentioned. But regardless, man, neither of them make me excited.
Yeah.
So it's not even a thing where I'm like, if I miss out on both, I'm not too worried about it. But if I was to pick one, again, it would probably be Tracy.
I want to say one thing about the Giants run back. Actually, I'm glad you said that thing about because honestly, like before I felt like that, but then like after just sort of I don't know again like kind of just like getting more information, I actually am kind of excited about who may like eventually emerge from this backfield because one, their offensive line is going to be better.
Are they? What they?
Yeah. What's the star? What was his name?
They added somebody? Or
no, there was somebody that was hurt last year. It's coming back this year.
Not Evan Neal. Or maybe it's that tackle. I don't know. I don't follow the Giants like that.
Yeah. So one of the old linemen is
so they're getting healthy.
They're getting healthy.
Got you.
But a big thing for me is Russell Wilson. So you have a competent quarterback, which ideally you have a more competent offense. So again, that's sort of kind of a situation where like everybody potentially rises, more potential fantasy points to go around. But the kicker for me is Russell Wilson has a high check down rate. Loves the D ball, loves checking it down. Whereas their quarterbacks last year, especially Daniel Jones, is kind of like, down there with Anthony Richardson. Shout out to Fantasy Points for this. Was down there with Anthony Richardson as far as check down.
Oh, there's like a list you saw or something?
Yeah, as a check down to running back. So
Russ was number one?
He wasn't number one, but he was high up there. He was high up there.
That had you excited about the Giants?
Yeah, that's significant.
Like, that's significant. Number one, I think.
He wasn't number. I don't know if he was number one. Was he number one?
No, I think he was number one.
Well, I mean, even so, man, that team is not exciting me. I don't think they're going to be successful. I don't like to bet on teams that aren't going to score a lot of points, and I don't think that's one of the teams that's going to score a lot of points. Yeah. So, I mean, we'll see. You might get a winner in there, But I'll ask you this: if you draft one, are you drafting them because you're okay with them sharing the load the whole season, or are you drafting them because you think one is going to overtake the backfield?
No, I think there's going to be a 1A for sure.
So a solid 1A.
A solid 1A. I think it's going to be a solid 1A.
So you're just betting on one.
I don't think it's going to. Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys. We talked about ambiguous backfields. I kind of want to touch on.
Is this our group chat on here?
It is, but it's not on that.
Oh, okay.
No. But I also want to talk about ambiguous quarterbacks because there are two teams that have an ambiguous quarterback situation, primarily the Colts. I think we don't know
the Colts?
Yeah, like the Colts, like Indianapolis.
We know what's going on there. Come on now.
No, we don't really.
I don't think that we know.
But you know.
But my question to you guys, is, does your rankings and how you see this receiver room change based on who the quarterback is? Right. So, like, do you see these receivers and how you draft these receivers different if Daniel Jones is the quarterback versus Anthony Richardson? I sort of see the Browns as the same way. It's an ambiguous quarterback situation. Do you rank those receivers differently? I know I do, especially with the Browns. Like if Joe Flacco is the quarterback there, I'm smashing a button on Njoku. Like he is raised up a notch for me. How do you guys
who would you not smash? Like what are you just saying Flacco elevates Njoku, or are you saying there's another quarterback that reduces Njoku?
I think Flacco, I've seen Njoku thrive with Flacco.
So he elevates him for you.
And he elevates him for me. Also, I might see Cedric Tillman over Jerry Jeudy just because
I think Flacco's the quarterback? Or Deontay Johnson.
Or Deontay
If Flacco's the quarterback?
If Flacco's the quarterback.
So you think Flacco's going to elevate all those guys?
I think Flacco is a better quarterback for their particular skill set.
Okay, so I'm putting you on the spot. So right now, where they're valued, are you valuing them right now as if Flacco is the quarterback, or are you saying if you hear that Flacco is not the quarterback, you're going to bring down all their values right now?
If I hear Flacco is not the quarterback, I'm bringing down all their values.
Okay, so you right now where they're valued, you're saying they've been increased in value because right now the assumption is Flacco's going to be the guy.
Specifically Njoku. Yeah. Specifically Njoku. I mean Cedric Tillman. He's pretty.
Yeah, I disagree. I feel like I think what you're saying in your premise, I think most people agree with, but I actually do think like it's all baked in, both for the Colts and the Browns. I think it's like baked into their ADP value. Will my mind change? Will my opinion change?
What do you mean? What's baked in?
So like the Colts, for instance, let's take the Colts.
We know what's going on.
Hey,
going back to what we talked about, Justin Fields was number one on the check down.
Okay, so shout out to Breece Hall. So we can say we know.
And Isaiah Davis and Braylon. Put that out there. Go ahead.
Yeah. So we can say we know, but say like if we know like Daniel Jones is if they came out and said Daniel Jones is the number one starting quarterback, I guarantee you would see an increase in ADP in Josh Downs.
Okay,
Michael
so you
Pittman,
see that so there's not baked in there. Or what
it is baked in. I'm saying right now the ambiguity is baked in. People don't feel confident in that.
But it's not baked in the fact that you're saying right now, if they did come out and say Daniel Jones the guy, all these guys' values are going to go up. So it's not baked in right now.
They have not said that.
That's what I'm saying. So that's what I'm saying. It's not baked in because if
it is baked in. Because nobody knows what's going on.
No, what I mean by baked in means people are assuming that's going to happen, so their values are set as if that's happening.
Oh, nobody's.
That's what I said. So it's not baked in yet. You're basically saying that if it happened, you're saying what opposite Chris is saying. If it does happen, all those values.
No. For the Browns, I think it's baked in. I think people feel like
Flacco's the guy.
Well, this is how. So for the Brown situation, actually for both, I'm definitely approaching this from a quarter standpoint. Like, I may not be able to use any Browns player the first quarter if they decide they want to give the rookie a shot. Or I may only be able to use the Browns wide receivers for the first and the second quarter until, like, that team is no longer in contention and they want to, like, say like, in our minds, I think we all probably, if we're betting, we assume that Flacco's going to start the year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you had to place a bet
differently, but
yeah. And then I think if you had to place a bet, like you have to place a bet, you have to pick one. Is it going to be Flacco that's going to end the year, or is it going to be somebody else? I think most people are probably going to take the field.
I don't even think people should worry about the end of the year because too much changes.
But this is what I'm saying. I'm saying that confusion is baked into why Njoku goes where he goes.
Maybe. But let me start with the same question. Same exact question because the way I asked Chris the question, he's essentially saying it's baked in. So the same question to you. If they announce tomorrow Flacco is the quarterback,
that's baked in.
So all those values. Okay,
so nobody's assuming that nobody. strongly believes Nobody strongly believes that Flacco's going to start the entire season.
So for both of y'all,
right. I think the ADP's baked in. For me, Njoku, I don't care who's a quarterback. I think Njoku is a tremendous value. The wide receiver is different though, because the wide receiver, I think people aren't baking into or taking into account that like it may not be Jared. I think it's going to be Jerry Jeudy. I want to have some Jerry Jeudy shares, but it may not be Jerry Jeudy. And if you get a new quarterback that comes in, I don't know what their tendency is going to be.
That's a different discussion.
I don't know. You're
talking about the hierarchy of the receivers.
Yeah, I don't know if the offense is going to change. I don't know.
I'd argue it's going to be Jeudy no matter who's the quarterback.
Maybe not.
I think it's going to be.
If you look at the splits with Jeudy,
I'm not trying to go through all that with Jeudy and Tillman. I know you're going to try to throw all these stats. I'm not worried about that. This is where I see it. Okay. The Browns covered Jeudy. They traded for him last year. They gave him an extension before he played it down with them. He played great last year. He was a Pro Bowler.
He played great when everybody was hurt. That's
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He played great. He played great though.
Okay.
He played great. He got a Pro Bowl. He had one of the greatest games of the season. I think he might have had the highest yardage total in one game out of everybody else. Maybe not, but definitely was up there, that 200-yard game.
Yeah.
But again, going back to what I'm saying as far as the baked in. So y'all are both saying right now, if they say it was any other quarterback that's going to start for the Browns, they announce it, all those ADPs, or all the values of the Browns players are going to go down to y'all.
No, not all of them. No.
Not all of them, with the exception
Tillman's
of
already low. Tillman's already low. Deontay Johnson's not being drafted. Maybe Judy drops a little bit.
But you see drops regardless.
Yeah.
You see drops.
But my whole thing is like, I don't know how bad or how good these other quarterbacks are. I don't know what their tendency is. So for me, like, they're not changing all that much.
Right. I'm just saying which direction. I'm just trying to see. Do you see it being better for them or worse for them?
I don't know.
Both of y'all, it sounds like 85, y'all see it's being worse.
If Flacco starts, it's better for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Point blank period. For me, Flacco starts.
But I'm not. That's not the question I'm asking. What I'm saying is ADP wise.
Yeah.
If Flacco is announced the starter, do you see their ADPs increasing, or do you think where they are now?
I don't think it changes.
Where they're drafted now is presuming that Flacco is the guy
to start.
Yes, to start.
So, but again, by saying that, you're also down telling me if they come out tomorrow and say Flacco is not the guy, all those guys got to go down,
except for Njoku.
Except for Njoku for you, but for you, everybody goes down.
Like everybody goes down.
Everybody goes down. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
That's kind of scary.
If Pickett comes out right now, you're still like thinking,
because in my mind, number one, if Pickett wins the job, then like he's shown something. He's shown some improvement. Maybe his time with the Eagles is because the team in this current situation had to go through Deshaun Watson. They had to go through Jameis Winston. They had to go through DTR. They went through all that hoopla just to try and keep, their star defensive end happy and keep him in town. I don't think they're going to put up with just having some random quarterback back there. If Pickett wins the job, it's because either Flacco is not as good as he was 2 years ago, and like he deteriorated, so he shouldn't be, or Pickett is better. So and then I think if Pickett is just the same player that he's been previously, to me, like, this is then going to be a highly esteemed offense where it's going to be really two guys. You're going to keep it simple for him, and those two guys are going to be Njoku and probably
just say the receiver. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I agree with that take actually, and that's what I was really trying to get down to. Like I think no matter who the Browns quarterback is, all those pieces are going to be valued the same. I don't think anybody's going up, anybody's going down. I do that premise you just said as far as if Pickett wins a job, it's telling us one or two things. I wholeheartedly believe that. It's telling us either Flacco is not doing as well as we thought he was going to do, or it means Pickett is tearing it up in practice. And in both of those instances, I think it helps the Browns receivers. I think it does. So I don't see it. Now, I'm not saying it helps enough to where I'll be like, okay, I now want to draft them higher. I just don't think it's going to make me be like, nah, I don't want them. Now, on the flip side, let's talk about the Colts. Right now, I don't know if it's baked in that Daniel Jones is going to be the quarterback. I think it might be in the oven. Because
it's definitely.
I think Josh Downs. I've been seeing all online.
Oh, everybody's like, and he could be it though. He could be it.
He could. People have been talking up Pittman a little bit. So don't forget Pittman. They've been. But if they come out and say, okay, AR is good, Jones, don't even worry about. Going with AR. I think they're going to free fall.
Yeah.
Both of them.
And they should.
Is it just them two?
No, they shouldn't free fall. They're going in the 10th round. They should not free fall because it's a look. I'm gonna use the same argument. I'm gonna use the same argument we used with the Cleveland. They brought in Daniel Jones for competition.
I know. You can use them.
If they decide to go with AR, they are basically saying that okay, we saw enough from him during camp.
Maybe
he's grown. He's become more accurate because even if he is the same, they are still both values given where they're going to be. Because guess what? If he comes out and he's as bad as he was last year for 3 or 4 games, guess who's coming in? So you may not have Josh Downs or this quarter, but that fourth quarter when Daniel Jones takes over.
Let me play devil's advocate. So first of all, if they do make him a star, it could have been. I'm playing devil's advocate two ways now. And one, it could be a case where they're like, they don't want to have a sunken cost issue.
Yeah.
They drafted him in the first round just 2 years ago.
But they're not going to do it the whole year.
And they're still like, man, we just want to get something out of this.
Yeah.
We invested way too much and got top 10 pick.
Mhm.
And then the second devil's advocate, or could be a situation where Daniel Jones just sucks, right? Like he's just been sucking. And if that's the case,
but
even everybody,
but look, even a bad Daniel Jones still was able to like make Wandale relevant, neighbors relevant during that limited time. Before that, he was able
to do that, man.
But like, look, he's able to make.
But that's what if he's so bad though?
This is the thing about this offense. You know, remember a couple of years ago, I was like, man, first read target. Look, I throw out stat ideas, and these stat ideas eventually come around, and they become.
You're talking about Gardner Minshew?
Well, I'm talking about first read target. Remember I told you, it's all based on the offense. Like, so somebody may have a first read target. That doesn't necessarily mean that this person is good. It means that the head coach has designed an offense where they want their quarterback to look at the first read, and if that's not open, go to the second read. A lot of these quarterbacks cannot make it through multiple reads. So, like, there's a couple of different things with the Colts. If Daniel Jones is the starter, does the offense change? Do they go more to 2 wide receiver sets or 3 wide receiver sets? The biggest issue with Josh Downs that a lot of people have pointed out is this: points per route run, points per touch, etc. He's great. He's explosive, this and that. Problem is he's not getting the routes. He's not getting the snaps because he comes off the field in 2 wide receiver sets. What we don't know is he coming off the field because they run less 3 wide receiver sets because they don't have a quarterback that they trust? Or is he coming off the field because that is their offense, regardless of who the quarterback is? And that first read is going to constantly be Pittman. That's why like Pittman is like an enticing value too, because if they just do the same thing that they did or they've been doing, Pittman is a value. He's healthy now. He's getting that first read.
But I mean, we're drafting right now. We're not going to know that, right? We're not going to know that until the season starts. So right now,
confidence level. That's why you got both of them.
You just got to put your bets on the table.
Yeah.
But
all right, guys. So we are way over. But to piggyback off that, looking at the last draft that you did, both Pittman and Josh Downs went right after each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
like literally in the 13th round. So to me,
not 13th round. It wasn't 13th round, was it?
I'm looking at it here on the 13th round.
It was not 13th round.
That's why I think right now they're starting to steam up.
That's like,
I think right now they're starting to steam up a little bit.
Oh, like 9th and 10th. Sorry. Sorry, like 9th and 10th. But that's still 9th and 10th round are still non-starters at that point.
Yeah,
it's like the first 8. Yeah. So that means one thing that we talked about maybe either last season or the year before that is that these ambiguous backfields, these ambiguous situations, like that's where the value is that somebody is going to be the number 1 receiver in that offense and could be the difference maker.
But the difference is, I think up to recently, and when I say recently, maybe the last month, I think there was still a very strong chance, and people thought this way, that AR would be the quarterback. Yeah. And if AR is the quarterback, I don't give a damn who's the wide receiver 1 on it. Like, we talked about this last year. I'm not that's my frat brother and all that, but no. He does not need to be a starting quarterback in the NFL. So if Richardson is the starting quarterback, I don't care who the wide receiver 1 is for that team. I'm not drafting him.
All right. I think that's a great way to end the episode.
I got you had something you want to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to look back in the draft back in May so we can give some insight. So Josh Downs was going in the 10th round, so I think yes. And Michael Pittman, both Michael Pittman and Josh Downs were going in the 10th round.
Like I said, I think they're just now starting to bake up a little bit. Not. But
April, same thing.
But I think it might be stalled a little because didn't they say AR is going to be ready for training camp?
They said that he's going to be ready for camp.
So man, I pray Daniel Jones with that job, man. Like I'm lighting candles. But like my one sleeper, Jacob Cow for the 49ers.
All right. He is getting a lot of buzz. So I did see a post about him getting a lot of buzz.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
All right, guys. That's our episode this week. Please like, rate, subscribe. We're out.